What is your quietest act of rebellion? I worked at coffee chain for about 6 months before our manager quit, resulting in some odd changes, and within a week, I stopped receiving shifts. Technically, I still work there, but I never work there, so I go day to day using the employee discount to get half-price coffee and free markouts, quietly reminding their system that I'm technically an employee there. I've since gotten another job at a paper mill, and they love the coffee runs I do as often as needed. This is the best revenge for that balls. My ex-stepdad was a smoker and was not allowed to smoke in the house. One day, just to get to me, he walked in and started blowing smoke straight in my face, and he aired out the house and sprayed air freshener to cover it up. After he left, I took some of his cigarettes and lit them and then dumped a little bit of the ashtray from outside on the couch. When my mom got back, I didn't even need to say anything. She immediately blamed him for the smell and leftover ash, and he couldn't call me out on it because he thought he had just overlooked the ash. Another time he decided I had been on my computer for too long and shut off the power in the fuse box to force me to get off. And I stayed on my computer because it was a laptop. Your ex-stepdad sounds like an ashat. I closed out my account with Capital One over a year ago, but somehow managed to not get $0.34 of my money when I did. So Capital One has been mailing me checks and reminders about this wholly insignificant amount of money, and I'm going to let them waste money doing so until I get tired of it. I did the same thing with Comcast. They kept sending me bills for years showing a negative 37-cent balance. Finally, they sent me a check. I never cashed it. When I was 16 and working as a cashier in a drive-thru, if I could hear kids in the car and the parents were rude to me, I would put an extra toy in one bag and no toy in another bag. That is just pure unadulterated evil. I started reading Harry Potter. When I was younger, my parents were insanely religious. I have always loved to read, but I wasn't necessarily super into magic or fantasy. I didn't even really want to read the books until the pastor at our church mentioned them in a sermon, and then my parents forbade me and my siblings from reading them. My siblings were in high school and honestly didn't seem to care, but I was curious. Why couldn't I read them? Were they that bad? All my classmates were reading the first or second book. I rode my bike to the local library and checked the first one out. I kept it hidden in my closet and only read it at night by flashlight or while I was in the bathroom. Eventually, I got an overdue phone call from the library while I was at school, and my mom found out. I was so grounded, and she monitored what I brought home from the library from then on. However, she couldn't monitor what I was checking out from the school library. That's how I became the kid who read at recess and started to rebel against my folks. You were actually a lot like Harry then, reading at night so his uncle or aunt wouldn't find out he was studying magic. Sometimes, you have to do the absolute bare minimum of your job description all day and clock out exactly on time whether the job was completed or not. Deny me the one day off I've asked for in 2 years. Frick you. When I was a little kid, 4 or younger, I'd say, kid, my mom used to take naps in the afternoons when my baby brother would be sleeping as well. She would try and get me to take a nap with her to keep an eye on me, but I was never a napper as a kid. I wouldn't be tired and I'd move around restlessly. She'd get irritated and tell me to be still, so I'd wiggle my toes in rebellion. She never knew. Similarly, when I was 4, someone in my preschool got yelled at for sticking her tongue out and moving it around, so I closed my mouth and moved my tongue around inside my mouth. My current job doesn't allow for jewelry, so I wear an anklet under my sock every day. Ain't no one keeps Laura down. Ain't no one. I work at a grocery store and we have fantastic prices on gallons of milk. Often $2.99 American a gallon. So fantastic, in fact, that a local Indian restaurant buys their milk from us. This has never ever been a problem, because we've always ordered enough milk to sell to them, and to have plenty left over for other customers, even though they buy sometimes 70 or 80 gallons a week. These people are also really good customers. They're always very friendly and pleasant, and we make a killing selling that much milk to them. Recently my boss's boss decided he didn't want to sell to restaurants, so he put up a sign that says 4 gallons per customer, not intended for resale. Personally, I think it's bad for business, and I don't enforce it. They don't come in once a week and buy 80 anymore, but now they come in every day and buy 10 or so, and they go through my line because they know I'll let them slide. What a retard the guy must be. Selling to a business at retail prices should make a business owner soak themselves with excitement. I work at the largest hotel chain in the States, and our location gives the employees complete freedom to discount rooms, as long as we don't go too crazy. So when you come into the hotel and I greet you with "Welcome to Best WN, how are you doing today?" and you reply with your first name, as if that's enough information to look up your reservation, or just act rude in general, I will likely never offer any kind of discount. On the flip side, if you walk in and are friendly or even just polite, I'll probably discount your room 20 to 30%. That is my own way of trying to keep the drunks and grumps away. Whenever I have a patient who is crappy to the nurses or other staff at the hospital, I write refrain from sexual activity for 4-6 weeks in their discharge instructions. It's my secret hope that they actually follow my instructions. Dang, this one is terrific. My employer wastes a tremendous amount of food. They aren't allowed to donate it for legal concerns or give it away to employees because of union rules. It's just sitting there in boxes and Santa-sized rubbish bags, waiting to be discarded. There's no rule against an employee distributing free pastries out of goodwill though. Just call me Robin Hood. Got some noisy neighbors in the apartment next door who we don't really like. So when I got a new Wi-Fi router, I kept the old one running on the exact same channel as theirs. Also moved it as close to their apartment as possible. Sweetest words I heard was a few weeks later when they yelled at each other that the Wi-Fi has gone to crap and the iPad must be broken. I check that the frequencies still overlap at least once a week. I am going to keep this one in mind. Quite cheap, and not actually illegal like a proper signal jammer. Living in England, we're all very reserved and don't speak out much. So one time on a public bus, the driver went past a stop even though several people had rang the bell, including me. As he went past it, everyone was just looking at each in confusion, but no one spoke out or did anything. Most people just got off at the next stop. Some even said thanks to the driver. In an act of quiet rebellion, I refused to say thank you to him. Anarchy in the UK. At my kids' school, there are always notices hung up about various activities or reminders. If I see spelling or punctuation errors on them, I'm in there with my biro making it correct. Goddammit, this is a school. Nothing makes me happier sadder than getting an official government document with a spelling error on it. In the army, I used to steal a tea bag every breakfast for a month. Also totally didn't look straight in front of me when I should have been. There were also other things. Needless to say, I'm pretty badass. I once spent 10 minutes walking around a small building my lieutenant was having a conversation next to. Every time I walked by, I would salute him and loudly give him the greeting of the day so he would have to salute back to me. Served him right for not passing the syrup at breakfast that morning. I did many push-ups later that day after my squad leader found out about it. Still worth it. A lot of stories here are really funny, but mine isn't. I worked as a lawyer focused on workers' rights right after I graduated, 2011. I didn't like it much, but I had to make a living. My first client was an extremely poor 30-year-old man who had a labor-related accident. The company, a supermarket chain, refused to pay for anything. He lost complete use of his arm and passed away in February before we could win the lawsuit, leaving an equally poor wife and a 6-year-old girl. Since then, I do a quick read of working conditions in every single company by noticing the attitude of the employees. If I don't like what I see, I silently boycott by refusing to ever buy from them again. I think this is the first time I've said this to anyone. I have a set of socks that are mostly white but have colored heels and toes. I wear odd socks almost every day and not a single person can tell. Mwahahahaha. When taking more than one order while delivering pizzas, you are supposed to take them in the order that they ordered. But if one house orders first and tips $2 and the second or third order tips $5 or even $3, I am going there first. At one of the lower points in my life, I worked for Blockbuster's Netflix equivalent, stuffing and unstuffing DVD mailers before dawn. Full time, read, 31.5 hours, just enough to not qualify for benefits. For barely more than minimum wage and gratingly southern accented harassment and petty rules from one of the bosses. The boss called me over one day to tell me he was moving some fraction of an hour of overtime I had worked to the next pay period. Understandable, assuming that he was under heavy pressure from corporate not ever let anyone work full time, much less overtime, lest they become eligible for any kind of benefits under state law. This was also wage theft and outright fraud, and frankly it was 5:30 am and I was kind of grumpy already. I told him to pound sand and give me my $5 in overtime or whatever it was. After an extended debate and threats of legal action, over $5, they did. From that moment until they laid me off a few weeks later for an unspecified reason. And believe me, they were not short on reminding you when you fricked up. I'm 100% sure it was because I demanded I be paid in accordance with the law and not that they ever caught my sabotage. Every single mailer I stuffed had the wrong DVD in it. All you had to do was put the top DVD in the stack on the bottom and everything was wrong, and since I was one of dozens of drones and I knew the mailers were not checked and likely to ever come back to me, I probably cost Blockbuster tens of thousands in wasted postage, lost customers, compensations for mistakes, and of course them paying me to sabotage them. Right thing to do. No. Petty. Yes. Screwing perfectly good people as much or more than BB. Yes. But it felt good and even right at the time. And not soon after I heard my boss was fired, and of course Blockbuster went bankrupt and was almost entirely liquidated. I'm happy to know that I added my tiny nail to their coffin. Frick that dump. A coworker of mine once came up with a brilliantly sneaky way to get his parents to stop hounding him about chores. He did them before being asked. What a weasel. Nice try, Mom. When I was in middle school I replaced all of the soap in the restroom soap dispensers with maple syrup from the lunchroom. We split up the chores in my apartment, and I decided I wouldn't clean the toilets until the floor got vacuumed. Eventually I just gave in because there's no point in having more nastiness than you can avoid. I work at a major retail store. Whenever a customer annoys me by doing thoughtless customer stuff, ignoring me as I'm trying to ask them questions, bad attitude, etc., I completely understand. They're probably just having a bad day, or not really in the moment. I get it, but it annoys me nonetheless. So whenever this happens I take slightly longer to bag their stuff than I would with other customers. I rob them of a few seconds of their miserable existences by pretending to struggle with the placement of a few Swiffer products. In actuality, I'm the fastest bagger at our particular store, and I love playing Tetris with the merchandise as quickly as I can, ranking up high scores in my head. But not for these people. For these people, I'm simply average. And that is the gist of my revenge against society. I was fired from my first job. It was a crappy gas station, and the owner was from Pakistan. I had worked there for over 2 years, and even typed up the owner's personal balance sheet. He was worth over $2 million. When it came time for my last check, he had gypped me out of $40. It took me a while to realize how to get him back. My state's law says that if you have more than 3 people working for a company, you must have workers' comp insurance. He didn't. He also didn't pay most of his employees with checks. Instead cash under the table, thus avoiding taxes and workers' comp. A number of months after I left, the Board of Labor came knocking. He ended up paying well over $3,000 for my $40. I'm a night receptionist in a bordello. One of the girls working there loves to tell me about the ways she likes to get even with clients who are being jerks. My favorite one is whenever she is with a virgin who isn't being particularly nice, she'll tell him all these weird things that women secretly love, like licking their kneecaps. There was a big clampdown on uniform at school. I got told I wasn't allowed my black trousers anymore and had to get plain charcoal ones in line with school policy. I went out and bought pinstriped charcoal trousers. They also expected you to have plain navy black gray socks. I wore colorful patterned ones. Take that, school. So you were that guy. This happened back in the 80s. I was a brand new intern on surgery. I was surprised to see that there were 2 change rooms for surgical staff. The doctors, for men only, and the nurses, for women only. I was greatly irritated by this. So one day in a fit of rebellion and feminist rage I walked into the doctor's change room and stripped down to my underwear and bra. Thank goodness I was at the no cellulite and perky stage of my life, and thank goodness I was wearing good underwear, bra, and put on my greens and walked out to the all, leaving a stunned group of male doctors in my wake. The next morning I did the same thing, only this time I noticed that there were more guys in the change room. The next day I had a veritable crowd, and so it went on for about a week. Then a hospital administrator type took me aside and said, next week the change rooms will be changed to men's women's change rooms and we'd like you to use the women's change room. So there you go, my act of quiet rebellion. This makes me so happy. Good for you. I used to be very pro legalization of cannabis, so planted seeds in Parliament Square. I knew it wouldn't grow, but still my quiet rebellion. A friend of mine did something like this once in a restaurant that had dirt planters. That cannabis plant was dang near 2 feet tall before they removed it. When I'm boarding a plane, I fart in first class on my way to my seat in coach. 99%. They should seat coach first anyway. It'll make the whole boarding process less of a clusterfuck. When I was a kid in primary school, myself and 2 of my friends got punished for goofing off while we were meant to be doing something. It was something so minor, but were made to write a letter of apology to our parents as punishment for our actions. I wrote exactly what happened, and at the end I wrote, I have no regrets, because I knew I had done nothing wrong. The teacher reviewed it and flipped out again, but eventually she realized that she was overreacting and let the whole thing go. I have abstained from shopping at Walmart for as long as I've had my own money. I'm aware of how horribly they treat their staff and how they double dip on profits through employee food stamps, and refuse to fuel any of it. Probably not as interesting as most posts in the thread, but it's quiet because I don't talk about it. People tend not to like anti-establishment rants. Also, I'm sure other businesses are comparably bad, but I'm acutely aware of the situation at Walmart. As far as I know, Target, Ralph's, etc. aren't quite as nefarious. Costco is the opposite of Walmart. They pay decent wages, treat staff well, and still manage to offer low prices. If there was one within a reasonable distance of my house, I would never give Walmart another dollar. I wrote a confession about it once. I refused to cut a busted up part of my tree. Woodpeckers nest in it and drive people crazy. I painted my house so they no longer peck at it. I sleep days and people are constantly making so much noise I can't get any sleep. If the woodpeckers wake them up at 5 AM, I consider that my tiny revenge. Making my employees use the serial comma because I'm the editor and frick everybody else. AP style be damned. I learned to copy edit at a magazine. I am collaborative, empathetic, and my writers and staff love working with me. I try to be kind and patient, nurturing and mentoring, but this is the one solitary way I allow myself to be an autocratic dong at work, and it feels good. I am collaborative, empathetic, and my writers and staff love working with me. I try to be kind and patient, nurturing and mentoring. I see what you did there. I squeeze the toothpaste tube from the middle because my dad is anal retentive and it irritates him. It irritates me too, but the spite is enjoyable. Someone wrecked the Hunger Games for me, so I went to their account and downvoted all their posts. I was angry and I think I regret it now. Not really, so sorry to whoever that was. I'm pretty sure that if you downvote someone from their submitted page, Reddit doesn't count it. I work in the retail business and refuse to wear my name tag. Woman. Thank you very much for your help. What's your name, sir? Me. Hamano. Thanks for asking. Makes me smile on the inside. I'm kind of a badass, so I could tell stories all day, but I will just tell you of one of my more recent acts. I was going to the PGA Championship a couple months ago, and they would make you tear off the labels of all the water bottles that weren't Aquafina brand. I'm just going to tell it to you straight. That pee me off. All they sold at the tournament was Aquafina, so that way the Aquafina label would be the only one to show up on TV. I'm not a walking billboard for any dang body. The workers at the court were speechless when I would buy an Aquafina and tear the label off of it just to make a statement. TLDR. I tore off water bottle labels as to not advertise for them. You just said Aquafina like a lot of times. At the store I work at, we have these super thin, sketchy biodegradable shopping bags to give to people. If the person is being a big butthole, I won't double bag things for them if they don't specifically ask, because I know that whatever they are buying has a 50% chance of tearing through the bag when they are halfway down the street. I don't know how many of them actually break, but I like to pretend that they all do. Whenever a teacher got mad at me about stupid things, I liked to take one of the pens from their desk. My ultimate goal was to cause a pen shortage among teachers, but that never really worked out. I'm pretty tall. Well, not that tall, but 6 feet 5 inches. I use it to my advantage against little people. At work, when there's something I don't want others to touch or lose, I put them in high places so they can't see them or grab them. Poor bastards. An adult male cousin diddled with my twanger when I was 13 years old. Afterward, I signed him up for 76 magazine subscriptions. Awful that he did that to you. You didn't deserve that. Hope you'll consider reporting him to authorities. Predators almost always have multiple victims. Sometime in the 80s, the Catholic Church declared war on old-fashioned terminology in hymns. This means that many older tunes had their words terribly mangled to fit a rhyme scheme that now ends in U, rather than the. For instance, I still, quietly, sing the original words. I'm a taxi driver. I personally think cab rides are expensive, so if a customer is nice, for any reason, I will give them a discount. Bigger discount for awesome people. Then there are the idiots. Rude, loud, questioning my ability as a driver, thinking I take longer routes to their destination. I never do that other than by mistake. I will drive exactly at the speed limit, ensuring you get as high of a cost as possible for said behavior. Also, drop something in my cab and forget about it. Yeah, that crappy phone is at the police station. I had such a busy night it's impossible to keep track of everything. The extra money for delivering it is nice, but the inconvenience of them having to haul butt to the police is boner-inducing fat material. When I worked at a pizza place last year, a take and bake place, so we didn't bake them. If the customer was rude, I would talk to them the whole time and be too cheerful the whole time. It's a great day out, isn't it? Are you part of our text club? How about stamp cards? Do you want extra pepperoni on that half? Is that your car? It's super cute. Do you have kids? How old? Great. Well, have a super wonderful day. I mean mom. And usually the woman would storm out annoyed and wanting to die. It was great. Prayer. When the USSR still held rulership over my homeland, we prayed in silence for our liberation and to be delivered from their evil hands. That the USSR would be driven back and our banner raised again from the ashes, as it always had been. Whoa, true rebellion. This is great. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.